Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick, coming to you this week from the city of Greenfield, the county seat of Hancock County. Specifically, I am in Greenfield's Depot Street Park and Amphitheater. This is a $2.5 million development that includes a green space, performing arts, a pagoda, as well as connection to the rest of the community through trails and sidewalks. It was recently recognized as the top neighborhood revitalization project by the Indy Chamber and part of a calculated risk taken by the city.
How am I going to bring things downtown? To have amenities in Greenfield, I have to invent them because I have no skiing, I have no mountains, I have no beach.
It is an example of something we're seeing more of around the state, cities and towns coming together, taking control of their futures with projects aimed at enhancing quality of life and making their communities a place where people want to live, work, and play. Small towns have long been part of the fabric of Indiana. Downtowns and town squares, the economic and social heartbeats of communities of all sizes. But a once booming manufacturing economy changed, and many Hoosier communities lost jobs, population, and in some cases their spirit. There are indications that is beginning to change, thanks to engaged community leadership and tens of millions of dollars in state funding. This week in nearby McCordsville, groundbreaking on the first phase of a $50 million McCord Square Town Center, what is envisioned as a mixed-use development to include residential, retail, and commercial development, green space, trails, and ultimately a new town center. That project supported by ready funding from the state. And joining me now with more on small town revival, the importance of those kinds of developments. Pleased to be joined by Denny, the executive director of the Office for Community and Rural Affairs, a former mayor in Huntingburg, so you know full well how these projects can be important for communities. Denny, I think it's interesting to note 60 of the 60 Indiana counties defined as rural, that connectivity, if you will, to urban areas is unique.
This is something we found out in a study from Ball State University about the rural economic recovery that we're going through our office. And what is interesting, Gary, is that the rurality designation from the federal government covers a large area. But in Indiana, the 60 counties that are designated as rural are all within less than an hour of what's considered an urban county. So the dynamics that occur in Indiana are much different than our Midwest partners. And I think that's something that Indiana can leverage and take advantage of, that you can have a quality of life and be as rural as you want to be in Indiana, but you can still be close enough to an urban center where you have an opportunity to expand and do things that only those type of centers can bring about.
You talk about the importance of attracting not jobs, but people.
Right. People is really the key for a lot of these rural communities. We're finding now, post-pandemic, that more people are working from home. More people are finding wanting to find a community where they feel the quality of life includes health care and safety. And if we attract those people to those communities, then that growth is going to happen, because these communities need people more than they need jobs. Indiana has done a great job of providing a lot of jobs in our state, and now we're challenged with how do we fill those jobs.
Just up the road, very close to here, McCordsville, big announcement this week, $50 million project that will essentially create a town center, if you will. Is that an important piece of it too, creating an identity for communities?
One of the things that I ask my mayors and community leaders when I go out as a representative of Okra is, how many people in your town and why do they live here? And the answer is always, there's something unique about living in McCordsville, or there's something unique about being in Greenfield. Find out what that is and create that energy based on what people love about your community already and what they're doing in McCordsville, building that town center, that place where you can come in and gather as a community, just like the park we're in right now. This is a place where the community can come and gather and have events and be social and enjoy that rural life that's really unique to whatever town you're in.
This project in Greenfield, a byproduct of the Stellar Communities project, the McCordsville project, the Ready Grant money, which is being spread around the state of Indiana. But at the same time, the leadership in the community has to be present to make these things happen. Do you see that happening? Because a lot of communities have struggled over the years, small towns, some coming back with projects like this.
Well, leadership development is part of what we also try to do at Okra. I think that is what really makes a difference in these communities, is building capacity to take on fund projects such as these. And having those local leaders who want to step up, they want to be involved, but giving them the skills that enables them to make some of those tough decisions every once in a while that see something that can help the community move forward.
We only have short time left, but it's about attracting people. But these kinds of projects tend to attract new business,
right,
as well.
Well, we're standing right here and this business we're standing here right next to this park was here because of this park. They've expanded. There are more businesses coming, and there are communities around our state that are doing the exact same thing through downtown preservation efforts, whatever. They're bringing more business, which brings more people and brings more vitality.
Denny Spinner, the Executive Director of OCRA, the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. Denny, thank you for perspective, great perspective. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Gary.
Well, another community in Hancock County really undergoing a bit of a transformation. It's about 20 miles from here, the town of Fortville, just north of Greenfield. The population there just over 4,000. It's experiencing some significant growth. The downtown undergoing really a big transformation, new streetscape, lighting, restaurants, and a mural on Main Street, and a total rebuild, really, of the key road leading through Fortville. Town leaders banking on that facelift to attract new business and add to some of the storefronts that have sat empty or had sat empty for a number of years.